So it really should not be any surprise that Netflix is the top streaming service in the world. They started, 15 years ago, and their only competition at first was Hulu. And Netflix already had an edge over Hulu off the jump. They were doing the movie rentals for about 10 years already. So they already had data, they already knew what shows people wanted to watch. In some situations, they were already contracted with certain companies to show certain shows, and since then they have completely bypassed Hulu. And even if it was kind of a competition at one point, and if they were kind of even, there was only one competitor the entire time. And you have to think about it, at first, for the first maybe like 5 or 6 years, they didn't even make their own content. It wasn't until 2013 where they made their first show. I think it was House of Cards. That was at least their first big hit. And before that, they were just taking everyone's shows and really profiting off of it heavily. That was the past, and times have changed, the tides have turned, and now just about every major entertainment company has their own streaming service. And I mean, there's good things that come with that, like, for example, everything is somewhere. If you look up a show, there is a very good chance it will be on some sort of streaming service somewhere. And say you don't like 90% of the streaming services out there, there's going to be 10% that are for you. There are so many options. Every streaming service is so different. And hell, nowadays, some of them are even free, which would have never been a thing years and years ago. But on the other hand, everything is everywhere, Everything is scattered. Every show can be on different things, and if you like two different shows that are owned by two different companies, guess what? You're probably going to have to get two different streaming services if you want to watch them both. And you can only have so many streaming services. There are way too many where back in the day, if you wanted to see anything and everything, you would have Hulu and you would have Netflix, right? And I mean, you're spending good bread on it, but you have everything. Nowadays, you cannot have every show and every streaming service without being completely broke in 2 months. Nowadays, people have a Max subscription. People have a Paramount subscription. Maybe you watch Pluto TV for free sometimes. Maybe you have a kid and you love letting them watch Disney Plus. But at the end of the day, Netflix is still the biggest streaming service by far. Like, it's not even close. If you look at the numbers, they are blowing everyone out of the water completely. But how much longer can they really hold this up? Hey, what's going on, guys? Hebenips here, and today I'm talking about streaming services and which one I think can take over Netflix as the top of the streaming service game. There's a few options that I think have a really good chance of doing this, and nothing lasts forever. So I think eventually Netflix will be dethroned, and I'll go over our top candidates right now. So before we get into who has a chance of taking over Netflix, let's talk about some streaming services that I don't think have a chance of taking over Netflix. The biggest one is Hulu. They were in the game forever and ever, and they were awesome. I even had a Hulu subscription. Actually, I still do, but they're owned by Disney, so their budget is limited. They can make a lot of money, but it doesn't make any sense for Disney to allow Hulu to surpass Disney Plus as a streaming service, so I don't think they have a chance. We have Pluto. I love free live TV, but they just don't have the potential. We have Tubi. I don't know what Tubi has. I think they might have live sports, but no. Fubo definitely has live sports, but they definitely don't have the potential to surpass Netflix. AMC Plus, I'm super happy for them for making their own streaming service, and it's going. They have Lucky Hank, which is a cool show I've only seen a couple episodes of because I am not getting an AMC Plus subscription. Stars, once again, they have some really great, really awesome shows like Party Down and others probably, and they recently started getting their own shows back and using it on their streaming service, but I just don't think they have the portfolio to keep up with the rest of the people. Peacock, this is one of the biggest ones. They were really close to making the list because they have a free option. They have really good live sports, but I just don't think NBCU is really focused on content like that. I remember them being more of a news channel, so I just don't think they really have the chance. And finally, we have Sling. I actually have heard really good things about Sling, but I feel like that is limited because they are so intertwined with DirecTV. And if you can show me one person who has a membership with Sling that is not affiliated with DirecTV, does not have any other DirecTV services, I would love to meet them. But whatever, that's who didn't make the cut. Let's go into the actual dudes with potential to take over Netflix. I think it breaks down into three categories. We have the top dogs, the dudes that were already in the game and are really the front runners to take over. We have the tech giants who just have so much money that you can't count them out, even if not all their content is there or they don't have a lot of it yet. And finally, we have entertainment companies, dudes that have been around for a while, have a lot of portfolio, a lot of great shows, and they have shown the potential to continue making really great shows. So if we're talking top streaming service 5 years from now, obviously Netflix is possibly leading the conversation just because they're at the top right now. And I mean, a 30 million gap estimated between the closest one. It's going to be hard to cut that down. And obviously they've gotten here with good reason. I'm going to try and make this quick because I've already been talking about them for a little bit. But they were a trailblazer to the industry. I've already talked about their originals in a video, so I'm not going to touch on those, but they still have some great shows, even with streaming services taking their shows back. They have all the Breaking Bad stuff. They have The Last Dance. They have Suits. They have Trailer Park Boys. There's still tons and tons of content to get into there. But they definitely have some reasons why they will not be projecting too well compared to others. They don't have unlimited money like some other streaming services we're going to talk about. Their prices have been increasing, especially in the US and Canada, with different price plans, more advertiser-friendly plans. They've been having a lot more crackdown on the password sharing, which I'm not sure is the best for them in the future. It's going to get them some more subscribers, that's for sure, but they're going to lose some fans like that too. And apparently Netflix goes down a lot. This is not something I experience too often, but there's an entire website dedicated to how often Netflix is down. So overall, Netflix is definitely in the conversation to be the top streaming service 5 years from now. But next up, we have what could kind of be considered the internet's favorite pick to be the top streaming service. There's obviously a lot of merit to the projection that Disney Plus is going to be the top streaming service 5 years from now. They dropped in 2019, so they're kind of like new, recent to the game a little bit. They've been in it 4 years at this point. And the one thing they have over every other streaming service, and it's not even close, is their insane amount of assets. They own so many film franchises that it's just crazy. They have Marvel, they have Lucasfilm, they have ESPN, they own Hulu, which we'll go more into later. And yeah, they're just the top streaming service for kids. They have a ridiculous amount of nostalgia. They have such an insane portfolio. Their name recognition is literally probably top for all entertainment companies. They have so much money. Look at this theme park. They are huge. Which is why it makes perfect sense for them being number one. I mean, I can see that happening, but they're losing money. They've lost almost $1 billion on Disney Plus, and I don't know exactly why, but if I were to assume, it's gonna partially be because they've been making some crazy shows. I had Disney Plus subscription for a little bit, and I mean, their shows are beautiful. Obviously, they spent so much on the sets and everything like that, but I mean, that's gonna cost you a lot of money, and with all these assets they have, yeah, they're gonna own a ton of great content, but they got to pay operating costs for those assets. They are now financially responsible for all these new shows that they make. So I guess that's why, at least within their first few years, they're just losing a lot of money. they also have a kind of low price for other streaming services like around their subscribers. They only cost like $8 a month on their cheapest plan, which is really nice, really nice. You can definitely expect that to go up. I feel like their biggest problem is, which might not be their biggest problem at all, but at least the reason why I was okay with finishing out my Disney subscription and not renewing it is because they're sort of missing a genre. If you look at a lot of originals for stuff like Netflix, for example, a lot of their biggest originals are dramas. Disney Plus doesn't really have that. The things they make, I mean, they have Marvel shows that often end up being dramas. Every show that comes from Star Wars is going to be a drama, but everything they have is like sci-fi, and they don't have like real life dramas going on. So that might also not help them out in the long run, but this could all be curbed by what they might be doing in the near future, and that's combining with Hulu. Like I said earlier, Disney owns Hulu. I've harped on that a little bit, and they are now considering merging to become one streaming platform. Probably with ESPN Plus too, so they'll have sports, they'll have Hulu content, they'll have Disney, which would be insane. You have to expect the price to like skyrocket for that, but for a streaming service to have all these things, it's really hard to doubt their place at the top. It really is at that point. So we're gonna have to see how that goes for them. And if you ask Disney, then in the next 5 years, they are easily, far and away the top streaming service. But not that Jeff Bezos would really care, but he does not agree with that. So it's important to keep in mind that Jeff Bezos has the money to do whatever he wants. So Amazon Prime Video's budget is going to be very, very high compared to other streaming services. It might even be the highest budget. We're not 100% sure, but I think they said recently that they use a little under 20% of their budget on Prime Video now, which is a lot. Like, that is huge. Amazon is a gargantuan company, so that's a lot of money. And with that, you're going to have a massive portfolio. They have about 30,000 shows and movies. Like, insane. Insane depth piece. You can find all the stuff you're ever going to need. And with that money, they also get a lot of like highly regarded former cable shows like Mr. Robot or The Boys. They have like a lot of really good shows on there too, just because obviously the money they can put down on them. But I personally haven't liked any of their originals that I've seen, at least. I didn't get through Jack Ryan. I saw a little bit of Reacher, but something that's going to be huge for them in the long run is that they don't just have live sports, they have live football, live American football, and that is giant. That is absolutely giant. This is a surefire way to get people to subscribe to your service because true football fans, you only get one game a week, so they are going to do everything in their power to see that game. So, I mean, overall, I see Amazon as kind of just a good depth piece kind of streaming service. It's good to have because it comes with Prime, and that's a really big thing. Amazon Prime is giant. So many people have it, especially after COVID. So many people are just used to having Amazon Prime now. So it makes it kind of hard to quantify how many subscribers they actually have to the service. I think the last projection was about 200 million. We just don't know how many subscribers Prime Video would really have if it didn't just come with their Prime subscription. So on the surface, it looks like an expensive streaming service, but you get it with Prime, so it's really hard to see its value. If it was $12 like it is seen as now, then I don't think people would be paying that for what Amazon Prime Video offers. Although they could still easily be at the top with their insane budget that trumps every other streaming service. But our next tech giant is kind of taking a different path to the whole entering the streaming service game. So Apple's another giant tech company that decided to get into streaming because they have a lot of money, except they were a lot later than Amazon. They are just now getting started. I think it was maybe 2020 or 2021 that they started their service. It's one of the most recent, for sure, and it's cheap. It's like $5 for the cheapest Apple subscription, which is really nice. That is really good. But what they're doing is investing in it heavily. They are making tons of originals, and some of them are actually really good. I enjoyed Severance a lot. The Shrink Next Door was really good. Ted Lasso was like an icon in getting Americans back into soccer. And speaking of soccer, their live sports are about to get an insane boost. I'm pretty sure they have an MLS deal where they can show a lot of MLS games, and Messi's going to the MLS. And just to prove how insane like their sports revenue is about to go up, Messi is getting a piece of that in his contract, so it's just gonna skyrocket. Like, he wouldn't have that unless it is clearly about to skyrocket. And they also have baseball, but their baseball sucks, honestly. But yeah, I mean, they just have great originals and really good live sports incoming. But they're kind of inexperienced. I don't think that really affects them in too many facets, besides from the fact that they just don't have a lot of raw content. They clearly use their budget to be like, hey, we're going to make as many good shows as we can on our own instead of buying things, which is obviously the new formula to go with now that shows or stations aren't going to sell their TV shows to you because they have their own streaming service, whatever. So they are making tons of stuff, and it's really good so far, but I don't even think I can count like 30 shows on Apple TV. They just, obviously, I mean, they might have more than that for all I know, but they just don't have a ton of content yet. So if you're looking for the depth, Apple TV's not really the way to go. They're doing more with it. They're different. They have a lot of links to other streaming services. Like the other day I was on Apple TV and it let me continue watching something on HBO Max. Like, it's kind of crazy. It's weird how they link up your devices. I'm a little uncomfortable with them knowing what I'm watching on everything, but it's good. I mean, they're doing all that they can to be an all-in-one streaming service, kind of. Basically, they want you to be able to connect to everything else from Apple TV with Apple TV as the source. But honestly, I don't see them, at least in 5 years, being the biggest. I think that they could one day, but I just don't think that'll be enough time to make so many originals that their current originals become classics, and I don't think they'll have a huge portfolio to be like someone's main streaming service. Basically, this can't be your main streaming service. If you're getting Apple TV, you're going to want to be getting it just to watch like certain things. But overall, Apple TV is really great, and they have already made a pretty big impact on the streaming service industry. Some innovation here and there with their whole connecting to the other apps, but that's just kind of an Apple thing. And our next streaming service is kind of like the opposite of Apple. So we have Max, or just the HBO service. Obviously, they wanted to change it up. They didn't want people to think of HBO when they thought of their streaming service. They wanted to think of the streaming service, so they're changing it to Max. Whatever, it doesn't really change anything. But this is a really new service along with Apple. It came out still longer than Apple. It was about 2020. They don't have the same problem with Apple or as Apple when it comes to their portfolio, because they have tons and tons and tons of stuff, because HBO is huge and HBO has been around forever and for always. So they have so many shows that are absolute classics. They are still proving that they can make new really good shows like Barry, and they're just a super proven production company, and that is huge. That is huge for the outlook, because it really helps you believe that they're going to continue making a lot of really good stuff, along with having so many countless classics like Sopranos, The Wire. I don't even need to go on. They just have tons of stuff. And it's not really big, but I really like their format. In my opinion, it's the best of all streaming services. They have the Leaving Soon section. They have For You, obviously. The Continue Watching is like all the way at the top. They're not like distracting you with other things. And they have like different categories. I don't know. Just their format, it's not a big thing, but it's my favorite. And we've been talking about live sports with just about every streaming service now. I think it's come up, maybe besides Netflix. But HBO does not have that. That is not something it seems like they're going to be investing in. That's not what they're leaning into, and that's fine. You don't want to diversify your budget like that. Like, that is okay. That, if anything, proves that they're going to continue making really great stuff and have their budget more focused on that. But it also is because they don't have the same budget as the tech giants we were talking about, or even Disney. They are a normal production company who's still on the Forbes 500, but they don't have Amazon money. And that's part of the reason why they're about $11 a month, which is pretty expensive for a streaming service. But in my opinion, this could be your, like, if you pick one streaming service, this could be it. Like, because they are still dropping new stuff and they have a lot of depth. So I don't really expect that price to go up too much within the next 5 years, whereas with other companies, I expect that to kind of skyrocket, like Disney, Apple, not Amazon, Netflix too also. I expect a lot of those to go up, where I expect HBO to kind of stay around that $11, maybe $12 range. And overall, I just think they project really well when people start diversifying their streaming services even more. I think they could really stand out. And one kind of cool thing about HBO is that they're based in New York, Manhattan, the greatest city on earth. But just like with all these other companies, we're going back to the West Coast with this one when we talk about Paramount Plus. So Paramount Plus, they're really stepping into the live sports game. I'm not sure exactly what they have. I think they have some MLS. I'm pretty sure they have more soccer, like La Liga, I think my friend was saying. So that's a direction that they're choosing to go in, and that's fine. I mean, it's going to leave them a little bit less budget for their other things, but it might leave their budget lacking for some other things. Like, they're the lowest ranked on the Forbes 500 out of all the companies we've talked about so far. Obviously, they're still a huge company. That's why they're still on this list. But I'm just not sure how good all their new originals are going to be if they're spending all their money on live sports. But, I mean, it's Paramount. Like, Paramount is huge. You've seen this movie intro a million times. They have some of the most legendary classic movies. And from what I've read, their comedy is actually, like, really good. They have some really funny stuff on there, which is important for the longevity of a streaming service for sure. And it's super cheap. $6 a month. That's probably, I think, the second lowest that we've talked about. Apple was $5. But it's just not bad. Like, this isn't a bad streaming service. They have a lot of stuff. I haven't really loved their originals personally. I've seen a couple. I actually can't even think of a single one. But I don't remember liking it. And I don't think that they have a ton of great shows. I think they're more strong in terms of movies. So I think they would have to make some serious strides, or their live sports would just have to continue to grow at a really good rate for them to be the top streaming service in 5 years. So, I mean, those are all our contenders, and I don't think there's one, like, clear-cut answer here. I think there's a lot of factors at play that are going to really decide who dethrones Netflix. I think it's going to happen within the next 5 years for the reasons I talked about with Netflix. I think they have some problems. And if Disney Plus really makes this one super streaming service, the only thing holding them back is the price, because they're going to have to charge a ton for it. There's other things, like if Apple TV really takes off with Messi joining, then maybe they're at top. If Amazon decides to invest 25% of their budget into streaming services and make better originals, then they could easily be up top. Paramount, I don't have too much of an argument for that one, honestly. Maybe if their live sports pair better with their movies. But I think it's HBO. I really do, just because I think what's going to become important, which is already the most important thing with the streaming service, is their content. And maybe I'm completely biased because it's my favorite streaming service, but I think they have the best content for the long run in terms of having a large portfolio and for making new shows. Like, they're a proven production company. And make sure to comment your favorite streaming service down below, or at least your preference. I don't know if people really enjoy this stuff enough to have a favorite, but I definitely do, and I definitely think it's HBO, even though they don't have the kind of money that Apple and Amazon, and they have less money than Netflix even, but I just think that they're going to continue making awesome shows, as I've said a million times. They still have some of the best movies. We haven't even really talked about that in terms of movies. Obviously, Paramount Plus is definitely up there. Some of the tech giants have not all the great movies, unless you want to rent them. But HBO has tons of stuff. They have tons of stuff for kids because for a good streaming service, you're going to need something for everyone. I mean, it can't just be a one trick pony, and especially if they're not going to have sports, they got to have kids' content. I want to say every streaming service nowadays has at least something for kids, but they're like in the top of that. I don't think they're above Disney in terms of kids content, but I think they're like near the top of that. They're near the top of actual content. They're near the top of portfolio in terms of depth. It's just the perfect storm. They seem to be able to maintain that $11 price range, which might become cheap for a streaming service in the next 5 years. You have Apple and Paramount who are going to give you under $7. You have Amazon Prime, which is like 12 or however much actual Amazon Prime is. But Netflix is going to go above this. I'm pretty sure it's locked in. 5 years from now, they're going to be well above that $11 price range. And yeah, in a day and age where people have a lot of streaming services for different things, I feel like most people use about two. I have no research on that. I'm not actually sure, but you're gonna have different options for different things, and I think HBO is just gonna be the best option in terms of watching TV or watching a movie. So yeah, that's gonna be about it. Kind of an abrupt ending, but I more wanted to just give a overall look at the market of streaming services and how it's gonna play out because it's interesting to me. So thank you so much for watching. I might have said that already, and I'll see you next time.